Hi everyone, I have our second project here. The second project that we have is going to be a Yayoi Kusama flower bowl. So this is continuing with our pop art theme. And what you will receive for this particular project is a lesson plan, a Ziploc baggie for our templates. Again, we find that the work of the students comes back much better if they have a template. So lesson plan, Ziploc baggie, templates. For this one, you have two separate templates because you have a large flower and a small flower for the center. So I will show you with our example here. This is our little bowl. And so we have a large flower template and then a smaller inside flower template, and then, a leaf if the students want to add a leaf. So with this project, you will need to cut these out before you go to class. That way you're ready to roll when you get there. You do not want to cut them out in class because that will take too long and the students won't have time. I've already cut them out for the examples here. So we've got one big and one little. Essentially, we're making two slabs of clay. We're cutting both of these out and then we're laying them on top of each other and folding up the sides to create a bowl. So this is our inspiration for this. This is Yayoi Kusama's Flowers That Bloom at Midnight. So this was from 2009. Yayoi Kusama, let's see, I put her right here. Incredible pop artist. She was born in 1929 in Japan. She was a very prominent artist during the pop art period. She creates artwork using bold patterns. Her favorite pattern is polka dot. She's obsessed with pumpkins. She says that she sees dots everywhere, even when she closes her eyes. So step one is that the kids need to get their little templates right here. Step two is we're going to flatten out our clay. Now it's going to come as a big ball like this in the bag. So the kids need to flatten it. Best way to flatten it is to pancake it in our hands, not pancaking it on the table, because if we pancake it on the table, then it's going to get stuck and it also makes just like a massive noise. So the size that we're going for is like a pancake like you would get at a restaurant. They can use their pencil as like a roller to roll this out. Many moons ago when we first started, I would send out actual rolling pens with the teachers and most of them got lost, but the kids really do get a much more uniform piece if they use something to roll it out with. So I would suggest to them that they use their pencil. So of their supplies, they should have two templates, a big and a little, a pencil, their clay, and then of course over here I've got my water, and then I like to do all my blending with a paintbrush, so that's just kind of sitting there. All right, so once we have our slab nice and flat, we're going to lay our template on top, and then we're going to use our pencil to cut this out. The pencil that I grabbed happens to be super dull, so I'm actually going to use a paper clip just because it's not going to be able to get down into these little cracks here. And if anyone ever wants me to send them a paper clip, this is something we used a lot when I was in art school, in the ceramic studio. It's like one of those really simple tools that you would never think about to use, but it's super effective, makes a really nice crisp line here. So you can see how thick that one is. Not too thick that it will blow up, but also not so thin that it's going to break. So that's our big one. Set that aside. Now we need to do this little guy for the center. I'm going to press that right down there. I'm going to cut it out. That's so nice and crisp. We hired a ceramicist to teach for us years ago, and she had a master's in ceramics, and she would just carry around a Ziploc baggie of paper clips, and that's all she would use. All right, so now I have both. I have my big one and I have my little one. Now that we have both of those, we can kind of set this aside. If the kids want to make this little leaf for it, they can, or if they want to add the polka dots to it or whatever, they can. So essentially we're going to be attaching this little one to the big one here, but we need to first make our slab into a bowl. So the way that we do that is very easy. We're going to just pull up on our petals here. I'm just pulling them up and bending it. Now clay does have that muscle memory, so remember it's going to always like to go back to the way that it was before. So The quicker we pull it up and the less time we spend doing that, the better off we are. So this is what our flower looks like now. And then I've got my little flower for the inside. So the way that we are going to attach that is we're going to score. Boop, boop, boop. Scoring is essentially our Velcro to help us attach. So I've got my hatch lines here, my hatch lines there. I'm gonna add my water. I'm just gonna use my finger, dab, dab, dab. Now, because this little flower is going in the center, gravity-wise, if it ends up falling out, that's okay, because when we glaze it and we stick it in the kiln, it will just fuse itself to the inside of the flower. So we essentially have the 2 layers of flowers here. What we do need to add is our polka dots to this. So Yayoi was famous for her polka dots. There's a couple different ways that the students can do this. On this example that I made, I just glazed the polka dots on there. I didn't actually put the polka dots on there. If the students want to, and I would suggest this because this is going to go by very quickly, I would suggest that they add the polka dots one way or another beforehand. So they can either use the end of a paintbrush, which makes that size hole. They can use their pencil, the sharp part of the pencil, which makes this size hole. And they can do all different, sizes if they want. And then the back end of the pencil is going to make the biggest, most shallow hole like that. It's my personal favorite. So we can do holes on the outside. We can do holes on the inside as well. They can also draw other designs on there. So, like a flower sometimes the flower petal would have like lines on it. If the students want to make flower petal lines like this, they can do that if they'd rather do that. And then we can always add to the inside. We can do little dots inside of there. I don't know what this part of the flower is, and I know there's an actual term for it, but like where the pollen is, it always tends to be like a bunch of little dots. And then if they want to add a petal, that's fine. We need to remember these things. Warn your students that if you do a petal that is long and thin and sticking out like this, chances are it's going to break. So if we're going to put a petal on here, we're going to attach it to the bottom, and we're going to make sure that our petal is attached at the sides as well, so that it's not just dangling out here in the atmosphere. That's going to snap right off there. Of course, we will score, slip, blend if we add a petal as well. And then don't forget, on the petal, they can either form it with their hands or they can cut it almost like it's a template. They can cut it out like that with the clay and a pencil. But they need to remember to put the lines. The petal has, like a leaf will have one line going down the middle, and it will have these other little lines that are in charge of distributing the water throughout the flower. So we would do that, and then we would attach it as usual right here, and then that would be our final project. Easy peasy. I think that your kids are going to love this one. Let me know if you have any questions.